Welcome back to the Long Distance Love Bombs podcast. I am your host, Dr. Jeremy Goldberg, and today's guest is Sophie Josephina. She's a conscious relating and sex coach. And in this conversation, we dive deep into masculine and feminine energetics, masculine and feminine relationships, all the good stuff. Sophie talks about leaving a career as a data scientist to pursue her passions after her body revolted against her over a period of years. We talk about what that was like for her. And we also just discuss general relationship stuff. It's really good. Sophie works with men and women in a coaching environment. She helps them to identify patterns and processes, help them live fuller, better lives, create more fulfilling relationships. It's a good chat. You're going to dig it. You can find her on Instagram at Sophie Josephina. So without further ado, enjoy this conversation. This episode is brought to you by Cured Nutrition. Cured is the leader in CBD supplementation with an entire line of products designed to take your everyday life to its ultimate potential. Their daily staples are formulated with an in-house clinical herbalist, which has taken the traditional CBD regimen to an entirely new level of optimization. If you're anything like me, you like waking up feeling good and living well. You've probably toyed around with the idea of finding healthy alternatives to jumpstart your morning. Personally, it's why I start my day with Cured Rise, which is their focus supplement. It's a powerhouse blend of functional mushrooms like lion's mane and cordyceps, broad spectrum CBD, and powerful adaptogens. It gives me clean, clear, and sustained energy without any of the caffeine jitters or crash that I get with coffee. After I get going, Aura is next. It's another blend of functional mushrooms, CBD, and adaptogens, but it's got a twist. We all know how important it is to sustain our immunity nowadays, and this covers all of my bases. The vitamin D, prebiotics, crucial antioxidants are delivered straight to the gut, which is the foundation of our emotional and physical health. Am I right? Second brain. It's where the majority of our serotonin production and immune function begin, or it keeps everything in check, performing at its best. So I have one less thing to worry about, and I obviously cannot forget Zen. I use it every night. It is certainly why it has become Cure's #1 selling relaxation and sleep product. You know the long nights spent tossing and turning? Yeah, not with this stuff. It has ingredients like reishi mushroom, ashwagandha, magnesium, passion flower, broad spectrum CBD. So thankfully, restlessness is something of the past. Cured Nutrition products are your answer for a daily dose of health. Visit curednutrition.com. That's CURED nutrition.com. Be sure to use the coupon code LOVEBOMBS, and at the checkout you will save 10% off your order. That's two. I've clicked two buttons and we are live recording a podcast. Sophie Josephina, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jeremy. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, this is a fun one. We've rescheduled, I think, 3 times over the last year, maybe. So this one's been a while in the making.
Yeah. Working with the feminine.
Right. Just dive straight into it. Where I'm like, well, that's just what's happening.
Yeah.
And you dropped off my radar a little bit, and then I found a document with your name on it and was like, oh yeah, I was supposed to talk to her twice. What happened? But we're here now, and I'm excited to jam. For those who are listening to this conversation and have no idea who you are, and they've never heard the name Sophie Josephina before, how do you describe yourself? Like, who are you? What's your deal?
So my name is Sophie Josephina. I think what I'm calling myself now is this is hard, right? It's like I think conscious relationship coach or relating coach. I do a lot in the masculine and feminine world. I work with both groups of men and women. I really enjoy bridging the conversation, bringing both of them together. So I love, for instance, leading a group of men in masculinity as a woman. So I do a lot of that. And I'm actually an ex-data scientist, and I quit my job a month before Corona hit. So I was at the top of my career, quit my job because it wasn't my calling. And then my first day unemployed was the peak of Corona on the 1st of April. I will never forget it. And it was the perfect timing.
Yeah.
I fell into my calling. I had spent an entire life living the life I should. And it wasn't bad, but it was really hard living a life I should. So I got very sick. My body refused to be in my old life, even though it wasn't per se toxic. But I've learned the very hard way that if you don't follow your fuck yes, something's gonna start screaming louder and louder. And now I'm here.
I I love this because that's very similar to my own personal story.
I had a feeling.
And
Yeah.
can you can you unpack that a bit more? Like when you say data scientist, my eyebrows raised. I was like, oh, a fellow science dork. Like
Yes.
what were you doing? And then kind of what was the process like for you to slowly realize that you were not where you needed to be?
Yeah, so I was raised by a tantrika. So my mother was very much into tantra. My father was a quantum physicist. So I've always been raised with both different, seemingly totally different ways of looking at the world, but actually they were, to me, the same thing, just a slightly different language. And I think when like in my early 20s, I was just very ambitious and very curious and I loved mathematics. There's something very intuitive about mathematics. I actually found it very magical. I found statistics very interesting. So that's where I went into first. I did something called decision science, and then I fell into data science, actually, with lots of coincidences. And I started in that field before anybody knew that, or before data science was a thing. So we were at the beginning of a science, and that was really beautiful. And I think it's a great craft. It's a great field of knowledge. I still very much enjoy a good data science conversation. I just think I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and that was, I think, what I was missing there. But I really loved it. It was very much a male-dominated environment, which, as a woman, was definitely a thing. I often joke that my life was like the Big Bang Theory, which it felt like, and it also a whole level of like deep respect for Big Bang Theory type of people. And I learned so much there. It was beautiful, and yeah, I did a lot of programming and math and statistics, and but weirdly enough, I always felt like there was an intuition in the data. So I loved working with really big data. I always had kind of an intuition of there's something there. I don't know what, but there's something there.
Mm.
And so yeah, I had about 8 years, I think, in that. It was great and not my calling. But I very much love that way of thinking still.
Mm.
And that's what I think sometimes in the more conscious or the self-development world, I sometimes miss the groundedness of knowledge. So for me, knowledge is safety. I start from knowledge,
I
right?
love that.
I love understanding the quantum physics or whatever behind it, and then to allow the mystery to happen. So for me, the path is a bit different.
Mm. And so
Yeah.
you were loving that sort of pursuit of truth in the data
Yes.
sets, but then in
Mm-hmm.
your own life, you were kind of not seeing your own truth in the life that you were
Yeah.
living, it sounds like. And so how did that?
Yeah, I think I was living the life I should. So I somewhere at the age of 25, I think I was at the top of my data science career. It was very promising, and it was as if all of a sudden the whole like structure fell apart because I thought, how, what am I doing? I actually, if this is my life, the upcoming 5 years or 10 years, I'm going to be really disappointed. This isn't enough. And everybody told me this was going to be great if I just studied hard, if I, got a good career, if I became good at what I was, if whatever, if I worked at a good company, all these things, the fun company, my life was going to be great. And there I was at that point, a really high level. And I thought, actually, this isn't that great. And I don't know if I really believe in this. I don't know if I believe in this promise. And initially, it was actually really rough because it felt like I was almost breaking from a religion. Like I'd been told God exists, and I was like, I don't think he exists. Because my entire life had been focused on this like hardworking, academic career, do your thing. And it wasn't fulfilling. And so it was initially really hard to also for my family and the people close to me, because I was so breaking with what was seen as important. And the reason I was able to do it is because my body collapsed like completely. She did not want to go back to that office. I, by the end, had like epileptic attacks every 48 hours. I was sick for 2 years. Couldn't come out of bed for 2 years. Like in my
literally?
Like it seemed like my body would make all these new diseases. Like, so many surgeries, so many things. And not to discount that some of that was just bad luck, but my body did not want to go back to the life I was living. And I thought I should be. I was very much in the, no, but everybody does this, right? Everybody has their job and needs to do that. And I have a really good job. Like, why do I not want to go back? And now I can feel it, because now I'm in this other career path, which has always been a red thread my entire life. And I just never saw it, I think. And everything's easy. And not won't say, oh, my health is completely back to normal. But the day I quit my job, so much returned. I got energy. So many things disappeared. So yeah, I always say like the feminine living is very much following your fuck yes and trusting that it's leading you somewhere, even if it doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Say more to that.
I always love this story from Steve Jobs, I think, right? That he studied calligraphy. And that didn't make any sense back then, that because he was a computer science major and he studied calligraphy. And eventually the calligraphy was what made Macintosh so successful, right? You don't know why it's gonna be there. But if your body's telling you, I need to be here, or in my case, I need to quit my job and become an online coach, or I don't know, I need to do online, or I need to do pottery making, no more questioning your fuck yes. Because I think there's something very magical there that is leading you somewhere, and we with our little brains can't understand it all.
I feel like the fuck yes is, I call it a heart whisper that originates in the body. And then the uncertainty and the fear around that originates in the brain, right? Yeah. So your body's like, fuck yes, pottery making, quit your job, let's start a goat farm. And then your brain's like, uncertainty, should, what will family say? No bueno. How do you balance that? Or how did you balance that uncertainty as you were making these decisions?
I gave it time to land. This is, again, a feminine principle for me, but to not rush it. So I think the whole process for me between me waking up.
Do we need to get that?
No, my partner is
okay.
There.
If it's important.
No, it's called, we order everything now because all the shops are closed. So
right.
There's a delivery service every 2 hours. But sorry, just lost my train of thought. Where was I going?
Yeah. The uncertainty of making decisions and then.
Oh yeah. It took some time to land. So I think the whole process for me was a few years. And I try to teach people this as well, to, it takes time to make a baby. It takes time to switch your life, right? That it takes time, and it can land, and it can not be clear for a while, and it can just not be decided yet for a while. I was just committed to my fuck yes. And I trusted that one day that would turn up to be something, but to also give that time to crystallize. So I think for me, that was a few years eventually. It's the rushing. It's the, I need to get out of this job now, and then not knowing how to do it, rather than I'm going to let this unfold itself to me. And it's very hard to be in. It's much easier said than done. I know when I was in it, I was like, I need to get out now. But looking back at it, I think what worked was letting it unfold.
Rather than forcing.
Yeah. Rather than forcing, or like, I need to make a decision. It's often, even when we're in relationships, right? It's not that we decide we want to break up with somebody. We wake up one day and we think, I don't think I want to be with you anymore. It's not a decision. It's a knowing that you just wake up with. And I think it's the same with this, like following your calling or whatever it is. It's something you wake up with one day. This is apparently where I need to be. And that takes some time to land in your system, and to also enjoy that process.
Yeah, especially when those big truths feel big, such as quit your job, or leave your partner, or have a kid, have a family, buy a house, move countries. Like, some of these things they're a big deal.
Yeah.
And so I think it's fair to give it some space and time to just marinate, be like, is this actually true? Or is this just a little gust of inspiration that's gonna, like a sugar rush that's gonna pass, right?
Yeah, and it's also allow the daydreaming to happen. I think we often think that the longing for something is a lack. And so, for instance, I want to quit my job or I want to move countries. I think in our society, we often think that means, oh, my current life sucks. When actually, this is again, I don't know why I keep coming back to this, it's interesting, but it's a feminine principle again of can I be in the longing as a, oh, I just really want more of life instead of, oh, so what I have now is shitty,
Mm.
right? This is kind of shifting the focus of, yeah, I just want even more. I just want even more. This is good, but I want even more. And if that happens, that's great. If it doesn't happen, it's also okay. Right. So not to have this like very needy energy sometimes with our longings and to just allow yourself to daydream. Like I can daydream and not be so attached to it having to happen.
Mm.
If that makes
So
sense.
yeah, let me try to clarify for myself.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm hearing is you saying that it's important to express gratitude and recognize how good things are now and how many blessings and privileges and amazingness pervades in your day-to-day life. And at the same time, it's okay to have desires and longings and dreams and aspirations and to pursue those things. But I think the catch that you're suggesting is that there needs to be some release of the need for those things to come to fruition, right? Is
Yeah.
like you said, if it happens, amazing. My life's going to be awesome and I'll love that. But if it doesn't happen, also amazing. My life is awesome and I love it now.
Yeah. For me, it's also that the desire doesn't necessarily mean that now is not enough.
Hmm.
So let's say I desire more money. That doesn't mean that my current level of money is not enough. It just means that because I think we often come from lack and pain when we're desiring. And that if you think of masculine, feminine, or you think of manifestation, that's actually really needy, graspy energy. It's like
Mm-hmm.
something sucks and like something's not good about my life and I need you to fix it. That doesn't feel good, right? If that was a lover, you think, I don't know if I want to go there.
Yeah, it seems
I think
like even the energy underneath that is like you're outsourcing your power to your dreams.
oh
Like
yeah,
you're giving your power away. Like I need this. I need to get out of here. I need to escape. I need to make this happen. There's a heaviness to that, right? And I think this
that's
is
the
like,
away from. Yeah.
yeah, getting away from rather than accepting what is. I think this is such a pivotal and important thing that gets skipped or overlooked when people start doing personal development stuff, right? It's like, no, I just want the big dream. I'm going to manifest some abundance, namaste, law of attraction. Like, bring it. I've cleared my chakras. I'm ready. It's like, yeah, but also you kind of hate your life. So we need to
Yeah.
sit with that before we need to create some space in that scenario so that the other stuff can enter that space. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah. Oh yeah, completely. I'm sure you know the book Existential Kink. You know
Uh,
this book?
it's Carolyn Stewart, right?
Yeah. I think so. I'm always bad with author names.
So Existential King. Yeah, you know what's funny about that is that book came into my radar just a couple months ago and I checked it out and then I saw the author and I was like, "Oh, I know her. I met her at a co-working space in Bali maybe 5 years ago."
No way.
Yeah, and we like had lunch and we kind of bonded a little bit for a couple days and hung out and she was like my pal briefly in this co-working space. And she was like very into like witchcraft and
All right.
spirituality and she was like kind of on a different plane that I was operating on and I was interested in that. And then yeah, a couple of years go by and I was like, oh shit, she wrote this book and it's kind of blowing up and people are talking about it. And so what's the book? I haven't read it yet, but what's the premise?
So existential kink is really talking about the kink of your living. And so instead of thinking like, oh, I'm suffering because I don't have enough money and I'm just screwing up everything, to almost see it as a kink, right? It's like, I don't know, being spanked and actually enjoying it. There's life in that. There's a reason your nervous system is creating this, because it wants to feel stuff. It wants to feel stuff. So somewhere the heartbreak, for instance, is a deeply alive experience. Anxious attachment, deeply alive experience, right? Like, poof, we're fully there when that's activated. So to sometimes see that we go to these things that are sometimes seen as suffering, but that a part of our nervous system maybe enjoys it. And when you start seeing it like that, you can also see, like, even like, for instance, let's say your health isn't great, right? And you want to get to a place where your health is better, instead of thinking like, oh, everything's shitty now and I long for better health. And so I need to manifest that. I need to create that, to see like, okay, well, maybe my current situation is giving me something. And I think because she's speaking about it in the kinky term, a bit of playfulness comes in. Like, oh, okay, well, look at what I created here. Look what I did. Or look at I've again slept the whole day, right? Whatever that is, it brings a bit of lightness in it instead of just judgment. I think what we judge can't shift. As long as we judge something, it doesn't want to be processed. If I judge my laziness doesn't want to shift.
Rather than welcoming it with open arms.
Yeah, rather than even playfully seeing it, right? They call this shadow work, and integration and parts work is so beautiful, because we really get to see all these parts of ourselves. Like, okay, that's a part of me that in a weird way is trying to create safety in my system. Yes, it's a very strange way of doing it, but okay, I see what you're doing. So it's to take the judgment off a little bit. And she's found a beautiful way to do that with existential kink. Yeah.
This idea came up of like, if the universe is spanking you, like if the universe is just giving you a fucking spanking in life at the moment, it's about being like, ooh, I kind of like that sting, rather than like, stop spanking me, this is so unfair.
Yeah, there's a victimization in that, right? And that doesn't mean that people can't be truly victimized. I also very much do want to acknowledge that, but there's something in the deflation that can happen, like, okay, well, I guess that's now done to me and I have nothing else, I have no say in this. So I love the way she was able to bring a conversation of, what if we saw suffering in a different way? What if we saw it as a kink? And then it's much more easy to shift, because you're looking for life, you're looking for sensation.
Yeah, like softens it.
Yeah.
So you work with a lot of people. You work with men, you work with women. What are some of the things that you teach or suggest related to, acceptance of enjoying the spanking, so to speak, the like changing their life, right? Like what's your jam? What are you passionate about? Like, how do you make magic? What's your spell?
So what I do with the men is that, there's a crisis in masculinity, in the sense that we all are dealing with toxic masculinity, which I'm sure you're more than enough about. Really?
Seems like the patriarchy is doing just fine.
The world's great. We all feel loved and acknowledged and respected. Yeah. So that isn't masculinity, right? And I think men suffer on the one hand of not having role models of what masculinity is. And I feel like more of a feminine because of a masculine next to me polarizes me into my feminine. The same happens for me when I lead groups of men. When they are around the feminine, something in them gets activated of like, oh, this is what masculine feels like. Right. Okay. That's actually expansive instead of rigid. And the interesting thing is that we help them connect to their inner feminine. And this is why I love working with masculine feminine, because it actually has nothing to do with gender. You have to work on both within you, because, for instance, with men, if you can't hold the bigness of your inner emotions or chaos or whatever you want to call it, you will not be able to hold it outside of you. If I, as a woman, as a feminine woman, don't trust my inner masculine to hold space for me or whatever it is, or I think he's always kind of screw me over or he's always bullying me, I'm going to have the same expectation outside of me. And so actually working on these dynamics within ourselves of, where are you resisting life? Where are you resisting your inner guidance, right? Are you actually experiencing life? Like, I think a lot of men are so in the overvaluation of the rational, of does it make sense? And I'm not discounting that. I'm a scientist. Like, I love that part. But if we only value that, we actually miss so much of the color in life, right? So much of the 3D of the, the extra, the juice. And to translate that in a way that men can hear it. So we are not trying to turn men into women. We are very much respecting the masculine, but in that very softly letting them connect to the feminine. And it's deeply transformational. And with the women, I do the same. So I work more with the strong, independent woman and helping her release that toxic masculine, feel what is actually supportive masculine instead of rigid masculinity. And then from that, feeling that her feminine wants to come out and play again.
So you're like a feminizer.
I don't know. Feminizer.
Feminizer, like you feminize men and you feminize women and you soften them. Is that a sweeping?
Here's the interesting thing. I think if,
or let's rephrase it as awaken the feminine energies or whatever you want to.
No, because what happens in the men is the more they connect to this feminine energy, the more masculine they actually become. So they end the course, we call it the initiation, like this group, they end it often feeling so deeply rooted in their masculine because they finally understand the feminine. I love all the men's work that happens, right? Like what Traver does. So it's so important, but there's sometimes a link missing that the masculine doesn't always feel how to relate to the feminine. And so the more he understands that, the more actually he also feels like, oh, so this is masculine.
Yeah. I think at a very basic level, a lot of people have a misunderstanding, and we should probably even clarify that now. When we talk about masculine and feminine, right? It's an energy thing. And so men, heteronormative sweeping generalizations aside, right? Men have masculine energy, but they also have feminine energy, and women have masculine energy, right? And I think just that simple recognition is powerful for people. So do you mind giving like a introduction to that when you talk about those things?
Yeah, thank you so much also for mentioning that, because I can sometimes forget it because I'm talking about this all day. It sounds super gendered and super heteronormative, and it's neither. It's unfortunately the words that we need to use. I can call it yin yang. I can call it consciousness and chaos. When I say masculine and feminine, most people have more of an idea of what that means. Regardless of your gender, you have both and you need to develop both. So as a masculine or as a male body, you can't just develop your masculine energy because, as I said, if you can't hold your inner woman, you won't be able to hold it on the outside either. So we all have to work on that regardless of our gender. The same in women. If I always expect a man to hold me and the man now gets shaky, I become very upset because I can't do it for myself. So we all have to work on that. And it sounds really gendered. It sounds really heteronormative. Actually, to me, same gender relating is the best school for polarity, because that's where it actually becomes way more fluid and you have to be super present and you can't fall in these kind of like, okay, because I'm a woman, I guess I'm feminine. You can't fall in that as much. So actually that's a great place to feel polarity, like shift every minute and to really work with it. I know it's sometimes a tricky conversation. I know it can put people off. I'd love to call it just yin and yang or consciousness and chaos, but it's sometimes a bit harder for people to right away have an association when we speak of those energies.
And so what would be a very rough description of masculine energy versus feminine energy?
For me, the masculine is the penetrator into the world. So it's how you bring yourself into the world, how you bring yourself into life. It's sitting in the driver's seat and creating the life for yourself. It's moving and changing your environment, right? There's a movement into the world. If that makes sense, it might sound a bit abstract right now. For me, the feminine is a receiver. So the feminine for me is not a surrender per se. It's not passive at all. The feminine is literally how you take in life. It is eating a piece of chocolate and enjoying that. It's getting angry in traffic, right? All of that is feminine. It's experiencing. It's letting something in, letting the experience of life in. And so if we call it that, it already doesn't feel so gendered. For me, masculine is not per se leadership, by the way. It's not per se always like I will tell us where to go. It's not necessarily that to me. The masculine is way more structuring of the world. It's the analytical almost.
Like boundaries, purpose.
Yeah. It's saying, do you want, it's not saying I'm going to take you out for dinner. It could be, but it could just be, do you want Thai or pizza? Right? It's the structuring, because otherwise the feminine's like, oh my God, everything's delicious and everything's amazing. I don't know. It's just kind of structuring the world of like, okay, what about this one or this one? Yeah, okay, now I can say that one. So I try to move a little bit away from thinking the masculine's leadership and the feminine's surrender, because the feminine's not passive. It's actually, she sets the tone. I actually think you lead from the feminine much more than you do from the masculine.
How do you mean?
Well, funny to talk about kink again, but if you would think of a sub-dom relationship, the sub actually tells the dom what they want, and the dom creates that for them. I think it's almost the same in feminine and masculine. The role of the masculine, if I can call it that, is to listen to the feminine, to listen to the world and say, okay, I see everything. This is where I think we should go. So he's actually listening to her. So if she doesn't give him, and I'm using him and her as masculine and feminine, but if she doesn't give him something to listen to, he can't lead, right? He has nothing to go on. So actually his role is to listen to her deeply, and her role is to express herself, not blame, not manipulate, but to express herself so that he has something to work with. So there's nothing passive about that. And so the feminine sets the tone, and so we're actually leading the space from that.
And that same principle seems to apply individually. So if my feminine energy, if my creative truth is repressed, then I might feel really frustrated because I don't know what action to take next, and I don't know how to plan this thing, and I don't know where to take this energy. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I love that you gave that example. It's exactly of, you know, if I have an inner dialogue where I think my emotions are wrong and they need to be fixed, and I just want to go to the gym every day, and me feeling tired and exhausted or sad is just something that we need to get fixed real soon, it means I'm actually missing a lot of pieces of information, pieces of sacred data, because there's actually that's actually what it is, right? Your emotions, your nervous system, your energy is all sacred data that your masculine wants to listen to. So if I don't do that, your body's going to start retaliating, right? Your system's going to start retaliating because you're actually not listening to it. And that's often the inner dialogue that a lot of people have, you know, like, I don't know, I'm anxiously attached. That needs to be fixed. No, right? It's actually telling you something, and can you listen to it the way a mature masculine would just say, okay, show me how you're feeling, without the judging and the fixing and the solving and the rigidity. Yeah.
Is it too, and I recognize this might be too simplified, but is it like the feminine suggests what she wants and the masculine decides what to do with that desire?
It can be.
From the energetic perspective?
I'm careful with these kind of statements because men can take this and think that their desires don't matter.
That's fair.
So if you are in that dynamic, it doesn't mean that your own, like if you want to eat pasta, own that you want to eat pasta, right? So if you feel space to create an experience for her, create the experience for her. And this is, I think, what's the most important thing for men to work on now is to stop sacrificing themselves for the feminine. She actually doesn't want that. She wants you to feel your own stuff, your own desire, your own longing. And when there is something left, when you feel space to create something for her, then come to her.
Yeah. I read this book years ago by David Data, and he's like a leader in this kind of stuff. And he had this bit about saying no to women. And the line was something like, she's going to be disappointed, but she'll respect you. Yeah. And I was like, hang on, what did I just read there? So if I disappoint her, she's going to respect me? Like I remember like putting the book down and just sitting with that. It's like, wait, I've not heard that before. I need to unpack that, but it sounds similar to what you're suggesting there.
Yeah. So this is why the nice guy doesn't work, because if you have a woman and a nice guy, and the woman doesn't set or the man doesn't set boundaries, what happens is she now has to take care of his boundaries. She feels that. She feels that he's not taking care of himself. He's not respecting his yeses and his nos. He's sacrificing himself. So she now feels that something in her needs to stay online to manage him for him. And so she can't soften. This is why the nice guy doesn't work. A no, a boundary is sexy as hell, because it means you've got you. I don't need to take care of that anymore. You're not gonna, right? Like, you're gonna take care of that. I don't need to. And that relaxes the system. And that's why it's so yummy.
And she, in this example, doesn't trust that person because he doesn't trust himself.
Yeah. It's about trust. Like boundaries are tough, and it's a very tough field anyways. Like, what's the difference between a boundary and a wall, right? What's an ultimatum and what's an invitation, all these things. So I'm not saying that any of this is easy, but for instance, if she asks you to make dinner and you actually don't want to, but you say yes because you want to be nice to her, she feels that. And she thinks like, oh, this is so annoying, because he's I don't know, there's an inequality there that doesn't feel good.
Yeah, I've been that guy for sure. And it's like, and then it's the follow-up of, is everything okay? Yeah, it's fine. I'm just making dinner.
Yeah.
Are we okay? Yeah, we're fine. I promise. But like, really, we're not fine, because I didn't honor my no, and I didn't want to disappoint you, right? I thought I should be doing this thing, when in actual fact, if I would have just said, you know what, I'm fucking exhausted and I need a pass tonight. I don't want to make dinner right now. It's like, she's gonna probably be like, it's a little bit annoyed, but also understanding, hopefully. It's like, because then the other side of it is when I say tomorrow, I'm like, I'm gonna make the shit out of dinner. Then she trusts that. Exactly. She knows, like, he wants to make me dinner, and like, if there's an honesty there, and in that honesty creates sincere connection, right?
Yeah. It's the sovereignty and the transparency, and I think a large pain from both energies is actually a lack of transparency. So he doesn't say exactly what he feels because he doesn't want to disappoint her. He doesn't want to own that maybe he just wants a one-night stand, for instance, right? He doesn't want to hurt her. I think the masculine feels very responsible for not hurting the feminine.
Yeah.
Feels way too responsible for that. And from the feminine, the transparency is very often in her heart. She's not fully following her own yeses and her own nos, or her own shifting constantly. Like I often say this, the feminine is yes, no, no, yes, no. It changes every minute. It's inconsistent as hell. It's like the one thing we hate in this world, right? But that is the feminine, and we can try to suppress it. Or, for instance, my partner knows that when I say yes, I mean yes, and it can change 2 minutes later. But he can trust me that I'm going to communicate that.
But now it's a no.
If now it's a no, now it's a no. I'm just like, okay, Dad. Right? And it's not personal. That's the thing. Like, it's not personal at all. There's nothing personal about it. It's just something in my body or in my system, or goes, no, not right now. Yeah. And that's okay, right? And I noticed that, for instance, in my own relationship, that the more comfortable he is with my no, the more I feel also free to say yes, because I know I can always shift out of it. So it isn't so charged. So I'm much more free to move with desires, longings, time alone, whatever it is. Yeah.
I would love to talk about like how an individual listening to this, who is recognizing that there's masculine and feminine energies in them, how do you suggest people do some kind of, like, I want to use the word audit or inventory, right? Some kind of like assessment, and like, how do you balance those energies?
Yeah. So if there's exhaustion or deflatedness or burnt out or anything like that, I can guarantee you're probably spending too much time in one of the two energies. So I had a gigantic burnout. I thought I was as feminine as they got, but I never realized what feminine energy actually is. I didn't spend any time anywhere recharging or receiving or experiencing. I was just always in my alpha mode, leading everything, taking control of everything, arranging everything. So I was actually never leaning back. I now know that my masculine energy is a very strong one. I enjoy it. I enjoy very much being in it. I need to set timers. So this is what my inner masculine is now supporting my inner feminine. He's saying, okay, what do I need to do so that you have time to come out? I need to set timers every 2-3 hours to, I don't know, dance, have some tarot cards, smell some aromatherapy, whatever it is, to have a little moment for me to tap into that energy. So if you feel really the deflatedness, exhaustion, a bit depressive or a bit anxious, likely one of these two energies is not as cultivated. Another one for me is, for instance, I like calling it the young masculine, the mature masculine. The young masculine for me is very reactive, and it's like, you want to fight. It's kind of that energy, right? So if you can notice that in your own system, that there's an energy that's quite impatient, so that wants to fix things and doesn't want to be uncomfortable, and like all of that, that's a little bit of the young masculine that still gets the mature. The mature masculine has a lot more time, doesn't need to prove himself as much. This is also how I can feel it in myself. For me, the young feminine is very reactive by emotions, right? She's taken over by them. She's explosive. I would say she isn't able to sit with her own hurricane. So the hurricane happens and just goes bleh. The mature feminine feels that the hurricane is there, but can choose to take it wave by wave, or can choose how much I'm going to show of that. The young feminine doesn't receive praise, doesn't receive love. When somebody says you look pretty, goes, oh, you look pretty too, right? Actually doesn't let in anything. The more mature feminine actually takes a breath and thinks, okay, yeah, thank you, right? I received that. So these are all these little ways that you can check if you're, I like to see it as teenagers. If there's something in that you recognize, you think it's kind of this teenager energy of lots of energy and lots of things to feel and to do and to say, there's still some maturing that you get to do there. Yeah.
And so if you, for example, work with a client who's a female CEO, wears the business suits every day, is also, raising a family, married to a guy who's not really in his masculine. And you could obviously tell that there's some things that need to be rebalanced, let's say. What are some steps or like, how do you suggest people have that conversation with a partner? Because I'm thinking that for a woman listening to this, and I know this is quite common because I hear about it a lot. It's like, how do I get my guy to do the work? Like, I would love to have a guy that owns his shit and is a real like masculine dynamic so that I can soften, so that I can just be myself, but I don't have that dynamic now.
We could talk about that for hours.
$10 million question, right?
Yeah. Here's the thing. You can't get a man to do anything. The moment you do that, you're in a masculine energy because you're trying to shift something in your environment, right? If I want my man to become a conscious man because it's also great for him, I'm trying to force him into something. The masculine has an oath to freedom. So he's always going to feel when he isn't free. So when I'm manipulating with my emotions, if I'm saying sentences like, see how you made me feel, that's a guilt trip. Right? That's me trying to change him by guilt tripping in him. Outpouring me, look at what I'm feeling. So he's not going to respond to that because his sacred oath is to freedom. That doesn't mean that you can't hold a man accountable to anything. But if you bring the energy of, how can I make my man a more conscious man or be more in his masculine? You're already in a masculine energy yourself, and he's going to resist it. What you have to get to do, and it's really, I'm not saying it's easy, is start developing your feminine. And the feminine is actually trusting. So it's not and I see this a lot. I have quite a thing on the goddess empowerment because I think the goddess empowerment is very much a masculine energy, actually. It's not this like, I'm a fucking queen, I'm going to wait for you to show up for me, but also I'm going to wait for you to fuck up, right? That's often the energy that women can bring, waiting for him to wake up and to fuck up. That's so hard for a masculine to step into his leadership. That's impossible. That's not inviting. What you want, if you want to devote him into his power, there's a base energy of trust. It's like, I trust that you're going to get the car directions wrong and you're going to deal with whatever that means. I'm actually going to surrender to you. Not only when you do it perfectly, I'm going to surrender to you also when you have no idea. If you say you're taking out the trash and you're not doing it, I'm not doing it because you said you were going to take out the trash. I'm also not going to hate you for it. You deal with the mess. Actually let it go. Actually surrender it. And so I'm not saying that's easy. This is why we have all these courses on it, because this takes some time to land in your system and a lot of pain to be processed. Like trusting a man to a lot of women is like, no, big fat no. But this is hard. It's hard to be in the dynamic of thinking, I want a man that treats me like a queen, but actually not wanting to show up to a man and see him as a king. Right? So I work a lot with feminine shadows. This is very much one. And we can't do that. We can't demand an energy that we are not willing to give.
That's a good line. We cannot demand an energy that we are not willing to give.
Yeah. I cannot demand devotion if I think I can only devote my man if he proves himself. Right? That doesn't work. And I can see in the way the conversations a lot around men is that we work from the assumption that he's going to screw up. Right? It's like he's going to fuck up at some place. And so if you truly connect to your own inner masculine, that doesn't get any masculine energy excited. Right? That doesn't get anybody. My inner masculine doesn't get excited from like, if I have to lead a space and everybody's like, you're going to screw up at some point. Right? I don't want to do that. I don't feel excited about that. So when you really, it's very sometimes cliche to say like, oh, tell him all the things he's doing great or blah, 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 because the male ego needs that. But there's actually a much deeper truth to that if you were leading a space that's actually super vulnerable, that's very delicate. That's actually, if you spend a lot of time in that energy, no matter what your gender, you're going to feel that that's really vulnerable. Acknowledge the person for what they are doing. If he's doing one tiny thing that delights you, that's how David Data speaks to that. Speak into that and be like, oh my God, it was so yummy when you held the door open for me today. And even if that's the only thing he does all week and everything else is not masculine, actually physically be delighted by him in that. And that usually shifts this kind of relationship quite easily. But making your man do anything, it's not going to work. This is what men can do with other men, though. This is where you go to like Traver. It works for it. This is what men can do with other men, but not if you actually want to be feminine with him. Yeah. That's not the kind of energy you can put in.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it, because when you are around other dudes, they can say to you like, bro,
yeah,
you can't do that shit. Or like, yeah, knock that shit off. Like, that's not okay. And then it's like, oh, fuck. I'm being called forward by kings, right? Yes. It's like that king energy. Yeah. And it reminded me, I gave a talk a couple of years ago with my buddy Mike Campbell, who's a men's coach. Amazing. And he's great. And one of the audience members afterwards said, the standard, I love what you guys are talking about. I love what you do in the world. How do I get my man to change or do the work? How do I get my man to read this book? How do I get my man to listen to your podcast? And Mike he's New Zealand, he's Kiwi, and he's so lovely. He said, well, you're not going to like my answer, but you don't, and you can't, and you never will. And this woman's face sank. It's like, but what you're offering though is a path forward, which I think is really powerful. And
and also I love telling women this, like, what if you were with a man that you don't have to make do anything, right? What if you could just trust him that he is going to take care of his own path, he's going to take care of his own support system, he's going to take care of it? What if you had that? Wouldn't that be delicious? Yeah, right. And just bring that energy in of, actually, I don't want to emotionally babysit my man, so stop doing it. Even if you think he needs it, just stop doing it. And this is the thing, when we stop caretaking our men so much is when they wake up to it. I refuse to do my emotional work for my men anymore. A few years ago, I would always be like, what are you feeling? What's up? I saw your face change. What's going on? Like, I was constantly in the monitoring their emotional world for them, which meant they never had to do it themselves. They got used to me doing that. I don't do that anymore. If you're upset, you can come to me. Right? I'm not your therapist, and I don't need to be. And maybe it takes you 2 days longer than when I saw it. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I interviewed Christine Hassler on the podcast, and she talks about, was it her? No, Terry Cole. Sorry. Terry Cole, and she's talking about how she'll be in the kitchen and she's maybe making some sandwiches, and her husband comes in, and she could tell that he is not okay, like that something is off. And she said, you know what I say to him? I say, hey, babe, would you like some sandwiches? And he says no, and he storms off. And then I say, okay, well, I'll leave some out if you do. And then I just go about my day. And I trust that basically if he has something to say to me, he can come forward and start that conversation.
Yeah.
And like, yummy, that is right? So empowering. For her, yummy. I mean, is like to just be like, yeah, I trust him. He's got it. He can handle it. If he can't, he can come and ask for help. He knows where I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And also as a man receiving that, I could imagine that being so much more trusting, calm, not pressuring, I trust you that you've got yourself, and whatever that looks like for you, that's what it is. And I'm here if you need me. Right. I'm sure you know the drama triangle and the non-drama triangle, but the drama triangle is kind of giving unsolicited advice. Just saying, like, what can I do to help you? Or not even like, let me help you. When the opposite of that is saying like, yeah, I'm here. You can come to me. I'm here. It's really trusting somebody that they can take care of their own stuff.
Yeah, because the word that we haven't mentioned is nagging.
Yes.
Which is a common word that's used in relationship dynamics. Do you have anything to say about that? I
think you interviewed G.S. Youngblood, right? Yeah, I love his book. It's incredible. He wrote this book called The Masculine Relationships. I give it to every man I work with. It's like a manual to be man. But anyways, he has this great sentence where he says, express the pain versus the blame. And so what the feminine practice really is of course you can feel things that, I don't know, you didn't take out the trash and that's really annoying. But the moment you bring that annoyance so that he's going to change, so you nag, like, oh my God, baby, you again didn't do that. I asked you to do that. That's manipulation, and that's taking away his freedom. And so the nagging doesn't feel good to receive because it's not respecting somebody's sovereignty. What the practice is for the feminine is to actually express your pain. So it can be, I feel really lonely. And still not to manipulate him. He has an invitation, right? He can just see you and do something with that, or he can also think, this woman's got it, right? But more of an invitation. I had it this week where I was going through something and I was just sharing it. And my partner said, actually, I'd love to support you in that. Can I step up for you in this? I was like, yeah, great, right? And if I had brought it as you're doing something shitty and I need you to shift it because I feel really shitty, it's manipulative. And now it was his own choice to step into this king energy of like, I want to step up for this for you. I want to take care of this for you. And that's also, that feels good to him. That feels good to me. He's not saving me. He has choice. And so the nagging is a very tricky subject because I think a lot of women have encoded that it means powerful or empowerment, right? I express what I don't like. I express my boundaries. I express this and express that. I'm not saying you shouldn't do these things, but if the expression comes from a manipulation, and that doesn't have to be your intention, he's not going to receive it. He shouldn't. A mature masculine shouldn't receive you in that.
Yeah, and I'd add to that, additionally, if they have created a relationship cycle or dynamic in which that's the only way things get done. Like if I don't ask, if I don't nag, to use that language, like nothing will happen. It won't get done. Like the shopping won't get done. The trash won't get taken out. The kid won't get bathed. Whatever. So it can be tricky to then navigate that. Yeah,
I get that, and I would challenge it because if you think that if you don't nag, no groceries will be bought, that man's not going to starve. Right? Just wait it out. At a certain point, he's going to think like, oh, darn, there's no food in the fridge. I guess we need to get groceries, right? It needs to happen at some point, but to actually let it go. And so this is also, again, thinking that men are somehow more primitive or simple. They're not. It's just a different information system. And so, if you think food isn't going to come into the house if you don't nag him for it, I would challenge that. Just wait long enough. And that doesn't mean that this dynamic is okay. It doesn't mean that he has nothing to own. Let me make that very clear. But there's sometimes a step missing of actually giving him the opportunity to feel the discomfort of what he's not showing up for.
Yeah, or even communicating what's underneath the request, right? So it's not necessarily about the groceries or the trash. It's about a feeling of trust and a feeling of partnership. And when you do X, it makes me feel Y. Like my partner.
I'm making it mean that I'm alone. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, no. A couple months ago, I don't remember when this conversation. I mean, what is time anymore? 2020 has just fucked me for time. I don't know if this was a week or a year ago, but I recall having a conversation with my partner, and something happened where she communicated that when I do X, when I do something, when this thing occurs, she feels less safe. She does not feel safe around me.
Yeah.
And that for me was like a head fuck. It was like a hang on. What? Because in my head, it was no big deal. It was just some minor thing. And it's like, she's making a big deal out of it. But then when she phrased it in terms of a lack of safety, some part of my core soul, whatever, was like, okay, this is fucked. This needs to change. I do not want to be in a relationship in which my partner does not feel safe around me. And that like switched everything. And so I think communicating how you're feeling at a deep and true level can actually lead to the change that you desire if your partner understands what's really going on.
Yeah, and I love that you're saying this, because I think this is also where it comes from in a lot of women. It's a narrative or a belief that if I don't guilt trip somebody, they are not going to care enough to step up. So I have to guilt trip them. And I love the example you gave. It's very similar to what happened between me and my partner. Like he curses sometimes, but it sounds to me in my system, it sounds very aggressive. So I told him a few times before, I was like, oh my God, can you not curse as much? And he would just be like, Jesus, Soph, I need some place to be a man. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it happened again for a few times. And I said, honestly, like I feel really unsafe because I have this history with male anger. And I don't think you're ever going to be a guy that's going to be in that category, but it makes my nervous system go, uh-oh, I don't feel safe. And it was just in me sharing what my story was with this, what it activated in me, that he went, oh yeah, exactly what you were sharing. It's like, oh yeah, but I don't want you to feel like that. Right? I don't want you to feel like that. And so he doesn't do this anymore. It's like, but it wasn't because I guilt tripped him.
Right. And there is definitely the immature part of me, or the teenage part of me that used to go to punk shows all the time, screaming about raging against the machine and fuck the government and like, I'll never change, fuck authority. That like when there's a request for anything, no matter how reasonable, there is part of my brain that's like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell me what to do. Like as an instinctive, reactive, primal, like, no, I'm a fucking lion on the grasslands. Like I do what I want, right? And so recognizing that little voice is still in my body, and then like cultivating the pause to be like, hang on, this is a very reasonable request, and I'm a grown man and living in a society, and I'm not a lion on the grassland anymore, as a caveman with the spear.
And I love what you just said, like you took a breath, you're like, wait a second. Right. Gosh. That's exactly the mature masculine. It's not to say that all these like urges or primal things or whatever it is needs to be gone at all. It is that you feel the oomph and then go, okay.
Yeah, Sophie, it's just like a consequence of my desire for pure laziness and efficiency. That I do a lot of things in my life. I am a super lazy person. And I have learned that if I can cultivate that pause and bite my tongue and not react, that will save me a lot of time and a tremendous amount of energy that then I could use to go do other things that I really want to do, rather than backtracking, explaining, apologizing, holding space, cursing myself for saying that thing that I actually didn't want to say. And so for me, like as a relationship toolkit, like if and when I do have the ability to cultivate that pause and just catch the thing coming out of my voice box before it hits their ears, it's like, okay, that's a strategy that I would suggest to anybody listening.
I love that explanation.
It's just laziness. I'm like, I want to save time. I don't want to have an hour talk if I don't have to.
Yeah.
I want you to be happy.
It's the path of least resistance, right?
That's it. I'd rather you not be pissed off at me for something I said that I don't even mean. That seems inefficient.
Yeah.
Just skip that step.
So masculine. It seems inefficient.
It's inefficient. It's inefficient. It's ineffective. It's a waste of resources. And so, and additionally, like I'm completely in charge of that. I can make that happen or not happen.
Yeah, just a breath.
Because I mean, I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm not perfect. I occasionally don't cultivate a pause and take a breath, and I'll hear the words coming out of my like a Pixar character. I'll see the words coming out of my mouth, going into her ears, and then part of my brain is like, no, and I'm like, oh, it's too late. Damn it. I'm gonna have to talk for half an hour. I should have just bit my tongue and cultivated that pause.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just literally say, oh my God, I don't know why I just said that. I'm so sorry.
That's happened. I've said a sentence, and then before the period at the end of the sentence, there will be I apologize. I didn't mean that at all. I don't know why I just said that. But that's less and less now. Like I'm like, putting in the reps, building awareness, knowing myself, recognizing the emotion and the feelings that come up in my body before they become a volcano of regret leaving my mouth through sounds.
Yeah. And this is really what it is. I literally just posted about this. So it's a bit alive in my system, but for us, society or the feminine, whatever, to recognize when men are trying to show up. I think we can be very critical of like, oh, but then this one time he said that shitty thing, right? It's this like, you need to get it 10 out of 10. Otherwise you did it wrong. To cultivate a little bit of like, this is actually a practice, right? The way David Data sees it, being in the feminine is a practice, being in the masculine is a practice. It's like doing yoga. It takes practice, and you get to practice, you get to screw up. And for us to see men in a slightly different light, or the masculine in a slightly different light, where, he can sometimes blurt out something that he didn't mean to say because he didn't take that breath. Cool. It happens.
Yeah. And even to add to that, like I imagine a yoga teacher leading a class, and there's somebody that's like their second yoga class ever, and they're wobbly and they're like doing the pose that to anybody else is like, that's not really that good. But the teacher will say like, look at you, you're doing it. Well done. Like, you're better than yesterday. Like, I'm proud of you is one of the best things that you can say to a dude.
Yeah.
Like, I'm proud of you. Like, you showed up, you're on the mat, you're here, you're trying. Awesome. Yes. Come back tomorrow and you'll be even better, right? They wouldn't say like, you fuck up. Here, again, I just showed you yesterday how to do this. It's like, they're a beginner. They're still learning, right? Let's be gentle.
Yeah, I love that. That's a beautiful explanation.
I'm getting fired up now, Sophie, talking about it.
I know.
My energy shifted.
I know. It's good work, isn't it?
Like, I think I need to write some posts.
Yeah, go for it.
Sophie, what have we not talked about? Or I'm conscious of time. It's been about an hour. Is there any like final words of wisdom or that you're like, Jeremy, you totally missed the plot. You should have asked me about this. I have this to say.
No, this is a beautiful conversation. It feels really, my feminine is surrendered. She's like, it's beautiful.
Is it yummy and delicious?
Yeah, it's yummy.
Sophie, where can people find you on the internet? How can they get into you?
Best is Instagram. That's where I'm most active. Sophie Josephina, which is both with an S and PH, or sophiajosephina.com on my email list, because you never know what social media does.
Yeah, right. And you, just to promote you a bit more, you do men's work with groups of men, taking them through a program, and then you also do groups of women taking them through a program. Is that right?
Yeah, so together with Amanda Bickham, I lead a men's group called The Initiation, really inspired by the old history of the historical stories where women initiated men into masculinity. And so we've really, from that vision, built this program of really leading men through masculinity from a feminine's perspective. And so that starts again in March, I think. I think we start again in March. And we really go through everything from sexuality to relating to leadership to all of it, to being a role model in your community, all of it. So that's an incredible group. We really, it's really powerful. As far as I know, I think we're the only women that lead groups of men in masculinity. So I'm very proud of that, of being able to hold that space mostly, of being able to navigate that space, and also a space where things like sexuality are a free topic. And so we very much, for instance, work from the notion that the male turn on is not a bad thing, right? So all of that's welcome there as long as it's owned and it's not leaked. But in its essence, it's a very beautiful energy. So you can imagine this is a very different way of feminine and masculine relating than what a lot of men are used to. And then for women, I run a program called Healing the Masculine, which is running right now, which I think will be online as an evergreen somewhere in spring. And then there's a lot of cool other things happening, but I can't tell them yet.
That's fun.
I know. It's a good year.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the conversation. Thank you for the work you do in the world. I'm glad that you quit your job. I'm glad that your body went on strike for a couple of years until you found your passion and purpose.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you took the time to hang for an hour with me. That was really fun, and I enjoyed it. So thank you.
I also very, very much enjoyed this, Jeremy. Thank you so much for giving me this moment.
Yeah, and we'll have to hang if I ever pass through Amsterdam.
Yeah, come. The world is waiting for people like you here in Europe. Yeah.
Thank you. So that is Sophie Josephina talking about masculine, feminine dynamics. You can find her on Instagram. You can find her online. Check her out. She's a wise sage of a human. So are you. I'm glad you're here. I appreciate you. I adore you. Thanks for sharing this with those you know and love. Thanks for the 5-star reviews. Thanks for subscribing. If you want, you can find me on Instagram at Long Distance Love Bombs. I've got a book, got a TED Talk, doing some stuff. Check me out there, follow along, and I will talk to you soon.